Hey folks, today I'd like to talk to you for just a few minutes about this current build I'm working on. This is the Tamiya stern pins or Brumbar. It's their newer release from a couple of years ago rather than the older one. It's really a good kit, but it does benefit from a few little tweaks here and there and some added details. My main goal with this tutorial is to show you what I've done and just give you some things to think about on your next build. How you can take little parts or details and either add them or modify them to add a little bit more finesse to your build and make it look just a little bit better than out of the box. So the most obvious thing I've done here is rebuild the skirt armor hangers out of styrene angle and styrene sheet from evergreen. Wasn't terribly difficult, it was a little bit tedious, but it's really added a lot of finesse to the model. I left the brackets that came with the kit intact, though I did sand them down with a flat file and sandpaper. Here's the originals. The parts are really thick, the teeth are really thick. The end profile of it is really fat and just doesn't look good. It doesn't look like what thin like it should. The originals were quite thin and easily bent. So as I said, I just made the rail itself out of evergreen angle, and then I made the teeth out of sheet styrene. On the front here, I replaced the springs that hold the fenders down. Both front and rear. The kit comes with springs, which look pretty good, but they're really fragile, and I broke 2 or 3 of them getting them off the sprues, so I really had to replace them anyway. In this case, I just took some really fine copper wire out of a phone cable, wrapped it around an appropriate size drill bit and a clamp, wound it really tight, cut it to length, super glued it on, and then punched out a thin little disc of styrene at the end of it, which represents the attachment point. Same thing in the rear, except there's no attachment point. It just clips from end to end. A really easy thing to add and really looks good. On the front here, there's some weld beads that go around this little parapet that has the periscope on it. The weld beads are in the kit, but they don't really look all that great. They're kind of squared off. So I took my Dremel tool with a steel cutting bit and textured them and kind of made them smaller and a little bit more subtle, and then blended them in with some liquid cement. The other thing I did on the front here was thin the front edges of these fenders for 2 reasons. One, it gives a little bit more realistic thinness to the front edge here, and also makes it so you can bend them and twist them up and give some damage. Again, sheet metal items on the real vehicles are quite easily damaged. Thinning the fenders is really, I mean, that's whether you build a kit right out of the box or super detail or whatever, that ought to be at the top of your list of things to do is thin down some of the sheet metal items and give them a little bit more finesse. On the back side here, if you look real close, these clamps that are on the starting crank, the kit came with clamps molded onto it, but they were not hollow. And I find that if just shaving off the kit clamp and adding these photo-etched clamps without building the actual photo-etched clamp, just adding the handle to it, really does a great job of adding some detail to the side without really very much work at all. It's just a matter of cutting off the clamp and bending this up and gluing it on there with super glue. It's really an easy thing to do. It makes your tools look a lot better. Another thing that I did was replace the nylon string that they provide for tow cables with some brass wire from Eureka XXL. This stuff is specifically made for making tow cables. The tow cable ends here are from a Dragon kit. They're really nice. They're completely round, whereas the ones in the Tamiya kit here are one-sided. They have a notch molded in the back of them to glue the string in. So these Dragon tow cable ends are a really big improvement. I'm looking for some resin options for this, because this is one of the things that I always do to my builds is add new tow cables. This brass cable, the nice thing about it is it's very soft, it's very easy to bend, and you can shape it, twist it however you want to, and it doesn't have really any memory to it. You can kind of bend it however you want. If you don't like it, you can straighten it back out and try it again. So that's it for this video. Again, my point with this was to just give you some things to think about on your next build, some areas you can look at to add a little bit more detail and finesse to your model without having to buy a bunch of aftermarket stuff. It's really just items I had in my drawer, scrap styrene and wire and things like that. So hopefully this gives you some things to think about, and we'll see you next time.